The test of staying, beloved soul. Before your mind drifts, before your finger scrolls, before doubt whispers, this is just another message. Pause. Because this word is not chasing attention. It is testing endurance. God says, a blessing will follow, but only if you stay until the end. Not rush, not skim, not half listen, stay. Because staying has always been the hardest obedience. Why most people never see the blessing. Let's speak honestly. Many people pray, many people believe for a while. Many people start strong, but very few stay. They leave when it takes too long. They disengage when answers delay. They detach when emotions grow heavy. They stop expecting when disappointment repeats. And God says, it was never lack of faith that stopped them. It was lack of endurance. You see, the blessing was not denied. It was waiting after the part they walked away from. The most difficult command. God gives. God rarely asks people to do dramatic things. He doesn't always ask for loud declarations. He doesn't always ask for public sacrifice. He doesn't always ask for visible obedience. Most of the time, God asks for something quieter and much harder. He asks you to stay. Stay when clarity is missing. Stay when emotions are exhausted. Stay when prayers feel unanswered. Stay when hope feels dangerous. And God says, staying is proof you trust me more than your feelings. Why walking away feels easier than staying? Walking away gives immediate relief. Staying demands endurance. Walking away quiets the ache, temporarily. Staying forces you to sit with uncertainty. Walking away restores control. Staying requires surrender. And your flesh hates surrender. Your emotions want closure. Your mind wants logic. Your heart wants assurance. But God says, faith is not sustained by assurance. It is sustained by trust. What God means by stay until the end. This is important. God is not saying, stay in abuse, stay in danger, stay in what destroys you. He is saying, stay with me, stay connected, stay listening, stay obedient, stay open, stay responsive. Do not emotionally disconnect just because the season feels heavy. Do not spiritually withdraw just because silence feels uncomfortable. God says, the end I'm speaking of is not exhaustion. It is fulfillment. The silence that makes people quit. There is a silence that comes before breakthrough, not the silence of absence, but the silence of preparation. It feels like heaven went quiet, prayers stopped echoing, direction blurred, emotion drained, and many people mistake that silence for rejection. But God says, that silence was me rearranging what could not be built while you were watching. Some things require unseen work. Why God does not always explain the wait. If God explained everything, obedience would become negotiation. You would obey only when it made sense. You would stay only when comfort remained. But God is not raising comfort-led followers. He is raising trust-led believers. God says, if I explained everything, you would trust the explanation, not me. So he asks you to stay without explanation. The point where faith feels tired. Let's acknowledge it. There is a point where faith does not feel heroic anymore. It feels heavy, repetitive, quiet, lonely. You are no longer crying. You are just tired. You are no longer angry. You are numb. You are no longer questioning. You are weary. And God says, this is where most people leave, but this is also where the blessing gets close. Why the blessing comes after endurance. God could bless instantly, but instant blessing does not shape capacity. Endurance does. If the blessing came earlier, it would overwhelm you. If it came sooner, it would destabilize you. If it came before endurance, it would expose you. God says, I allow endurance not to delay blessing, but to protect it. The hidden reward of staying. Even before the visible blessing arrives, something internal changes. You become less reactive, more grounded, spiritually sharper, emotionally steadier. Staying matures discernment. Staying deepens trust. Staying removes desperation. God says, by the time the blessing arrives, you will no longer need it to validate you. Why you were tempted to leave recently. This is not random. Right before alignment, resistance increases. Right before breakthrough, distractions multiply. Right before fulfillment, fatigue intensifies. And God says, the urge to leave was not weakness, it was pressure. Pressure often signals proximity. The blessing does not come to those who rushed. Faith breaks under responsibility. Rushed obedience collapses under weight. God does not bless speed. He blesses steadfastness. God says, what I am bringing requires roots, not excitement. A word for the one considering quitting. If this message found you, it is not coincidence. God says, do not leave 5 minutes before the miracle. You don't know how close you are. You don't know what is already in motion. You don't know what conversations are aligning. You don't know what doors are preparing to open. Stay. What staying looks like right now. Staying might look like praying without emotion, obeying without excitement, trusting without evidence, showing up without applause. And God says, this is the faith that moves heaven. Promise for those who stay. God does not forget endurance. He does not ignore quiet obedience. He does not overlook unseen faithfulness. God says, those who stay will not just receive a blessing, they will become unshakable. What is happening behind the delay, beloved soul? If you are still here, it already says something about you. Because many people start messages like this, very few stay. And God says, the ones who stay are the ones I trust with what comes next. This part is not comforting. This part is revealing. The delay is not empty, it is active. One of the biggest lies people believe is this: nothing is happening. But God says, silence does not mean inactivity. Behind the delay, there is movement you cannot see. While you wait, God is aligning people, repositioning timing, removing unseen obstacles, softening resistant hearts, closing doors you would have entered too early. The delay is not wasted time. It is protected time. Why God hides the process. If God showed you everything He was doing, you would interfere. You would rush it. You would question it. You would try to control it. And God says, some things must grow without observation. Seeds grow in darkness. Roots strengthen underground. And blessings mature unseen. The blessing is not delayed. You are being prepared. This is difficult to hear, but necessary. The blessing has a weight. It carries responsibility. It brings visibility. It invites opposition. It demands maturity. God says, I will not give you something you are not yet equipped to carry. So He prepares you quietly. Why you felt weaker before you felt stronger. Many people assume preparation feels empowering, but often it feels humbling. It feels like confidence draining, certainty fading, control slipping, strength feeling insufficient. And God says, I weaken false strength so real strength can form. What you are losing is not faith. It is self-reliance. The internal shift that must happen first. Before God changes circumstances, He changes posture. He asks, can you stay obedient without recognition? Can you trust without reassurance? Can you remain soft without answers? Can you keep believing without evidence? God says, when your posture aligns, your position changes. Why the end is so close but feels so far. This is one of the hardest moments spiritually. You are not far enough to quit easily, but not close enough to celebrate yet. You feel suspended, and God says, this tension means transition. Transitions are uncomfortable because you are no longer who you were, but not yet standing in what is coming. The final test before release. Almost every blessing passes through a final test, not of faith, but of focus. Right before release, distractions increase, old temptations resurface, familiar comforts call you back, fatigue intensifies, and God says, the enemy attacks what is almost ready, not what is far away. Why you were tempted to settle. When waiting hurts, settling feels peaceful. Settling sounds like, maybe this is enough, maybe I expected too much, maybe I should stop hoping. But God says, settling is the enemy of fulfillment. You were not designed to survive halfway promises. The blessing will not arrive the way you imagined. This is crucial. Many people miss blessings because they expect fireworks. But God says, the greatest blessings arrive quietly. They may look ordinary, small, unimpressive, subtle at first, but they carry alignment, not excitement. Why God changes your desires before the blessing. Earlier, you wanted speed. Now you want stability. Earlier, you wanted validation. Now you want peace. Earlier, you wanted applause. Now you want alignment. And God says, I changed your desires so you would recognize the blessing when it came. The moment many people walk away. Remembering this carefully. Most people do not leave because they stop believing. They leave because they get tired of hoping. They fear disappointment. They protect themselves emotionally. They say, I'm just being realistic. But God says, realism without faith is disguised fear. Why staying until the end matters? Because the end reveals what the beginning promised. God says, the middle is confusing. The end is clarifying. If you leave in the middle, you carry confusion instead of fulfillment. What the end actually means. The end is not collapse. It is not burnout. It is not exhaustion. The end is alignment. The moment when things make sense, resistance breaks, peace returns, movement resumes, and God says, you will know when you arrive. A word for the one who feels unseen. You stayed quietly. No applause, no recognition, no reassurance. And God says, heaven has been watching every moment you thought went unnoticed. Nothing was wasted. The blessing is already moving toward you. This is not poetic language. This is spiritual reality. God says, what you have been waiting for is already in motion. Timing is aligning. Details are settling. Paths are clearing. Why you were led to read this now? Because you were close to giving up emotionally. Because discouragement was whispering loudly. Because weariness was trying to convince you to stop expecting. And God says, I sent this to keep you in position. Stay just a little longer. Not forever, not endlessly, just longer than your feelings want to. God says, stay. The end is nearer than you think. When the end arrives, everything changes. Beloved soul, if you have reached this point, understand this clearly. You did not stay by accident. Most people stop listening right before meaning becomes clear. Most people leave right before confirmation arrives. Most people disengage right before fulfillment begins. But you stayed, and God says, because you stayed, you are about to see what others never do. The end is not dramatic. It is decisive. Many people imagine the end as a dramatic moment, a loud breakthrough, a sudden miracle, a visible shift everyone notices. But God says, the end is not always loud. It is certain. When the end arrives, confusion leaves. Fear loosens its grip. Clarity settles in quietly. You may not shout, but deep inside, you will know. This is it. What actually changes when the blessing comes? The greatest change is not external first. It is internal. Before circumstances shift, something inside you locks into place. Peace replaces urgency. Trust replaces anxiety. Confidence replaces doubt. Stillness replaces restlessness. And God says, when your inner world stabilizes, your outer world follows. Why life will not return to normal. Normal is gone, and that is intentional. God says, normal was survival. What comes next is alignment. You will not think the same way. You will not react the same way. You will not chase the same things. What once triggered you will no longer control you. What once tempted you will no longer distract you, because endurance has refined you. The blessing does not just add, it reorders. This is important. God's blessings are not accessories. They are adjustments. They reorder priorities, relationships, desires, boundaries, direction. Some people will no longer fit. Some doors will no longer attract you. Some conversations will no longer interest you. And God says, this is not loss. This is alignment. Why some people won't understand your change. When people knew you in survival, they may not recognize you in stability. When they were used to your availability, they may resist your boundaries. When they benefited from your overgiving, they may resent your balance. But God says, do not shrink to make others comfortable with your growth. You did not endure all this to remain small. The quiet confidence that follows. Endurance. There is a confidence that comes from hype, and there is a confidence that comes from survival. This confidence is quiet. You don't need to prove. You don't need to explain. You don't need to rush. God says, endurance teaches you that you can survive uncertainty, and that changes everything. Why you will no longer panic like before? Because now you know something you didn't know then. You know God can sustain you in silence. You know waiting doesn't kill you. You know delay doesn't mean denial. So when future uncertainty appears, it will not undo you. God says, what you survived became your strength. The moment you realize it was all necessary one day, quietly, you will look back, and you will see it. The delays, the silence, the tears, the confusion, the endurance, and something will click. God says, if even one part had changed, you would not be standing where you are. Nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. The blessing of discernment. One of the greatest rewards of staying until the end is discernment. You will sense when to move, when to wait, when to speak, when to remain silent, when to release, when to receive. And God says, discernment is protection, disguised as wisdom. Why God trusts you more now. Trust is built through endurance, not talent, not gifting, not excitement. God says, you proved you could stay without reassurance, and that is rare. So He entrusts you with more. The blessing will find you ready, not desperate. This matters deeply. You are no longer begging. You are no longer chasing. You are no longer clinging. You are ready. And God says, I give best to those who are no longer desperate for it. Because desperation distorts judgment. Readiness protects alignment. A final word for the one who stayed. You stayed when it hurt. You stayed when it was confusing. You stayed when it felt pointless. You stayed when quitting felt easier. And God says, because you stayed, the blessing will not just visit. It will remain. What comes next will not be fragile. It will be stable. What to do now, do not rush. Do not announce. Do not over-explain. Just stay attentive. God says move when I move, rest when I say rest. The season of forcing is over. The season of flowing has begun. Final promise, God says. You will look back and realize, staying until the end was the moment everything changed. Not because the road was easy, but because you endured.